And now let me introduce truly my favourite musician in the world. Are you ready?
Yes.
As my mother calls him, is that Joshua Big Tree, is it? Joshua Barndor, Brake Shield. No, Mom, it's Joshua Burnside.
Thank you very much.
We were on the sofa, falling asleep as the rain battered down, and the conservatory glass, nothing else sounds like that. It was so loud I couldn't hear the TV. Our uniforms lying soggy on the floor. Chloe, don't close your eyes. We'll never get this place organized. Well, I wished we were like Californians, as cool as the car in the morning. I wanted everything they had: the swimming pool, the sun and sand, the coffee in the kitchen. Oh, oh, and are they coming there droves? Distant cousins, I suppose, to see our ancient things, magic stones, that kind of thing, trying to fill some emptiness, I guess. Trying to fill that emptiness, I guess, just like the rest of us. Oh, just like the rest of us. Far away, far away, far away, the hills are green. Far away, far away, far away, the hills are green. Far away, far away, far away, the hills are green. Oh, oh, far away, far away, far away, the hills are green. Oh, far away, far away, far away, the hills are green.
Cabaret, Dangerous Ideas, and we had Play was the first dangerous idea, which was just the idea that there's something inherently dangerous about Cabaret. And Leonie was talking about the idea of nobody winning, everybody humiliating themselves, and I can't remember the third point, but I know there was three. Good preachers always have three. Play.
Failure.
Play, failure, and...
Like the ridiculousness.
Yeah.
I'm really attractive in a pink shirt. That was another.
Yes, yeah, looking good. Yeah.
Thanks, Ulrich.
There's one clap.
You know, Ulrich is supposed to do a doctorate in theology next year, and he's not going to do it now. He's going to go to clown school.
Is that right?
That is
Changing
theology
lives.
school. That is theology school.
That reminds me. That's like the story, although he chose the wrong. One of the Snow Patrol guys used to do, I'm not going to name which one, used to do Jesus mime. And supposedly one of the stories was he wanted to go into Jesus mime. He was like, I could become a musician, or I could continue miming for Christ. What should I do? And he had that crossroads, and he chose music, which I think we'd all agree was the wrong choice to make. Jesus mime would have been a much more profitable enterprise. It's so much easier. So I've got a feeling you might be choosing the wrong path. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, then last night the dangerous idea was contradiction. Again, Cabaret as contradiction, absurdity. There's something about that, embracing absurdity and contradiction rather than turning it into opposition and scapegoating other people. And then tonight's dangerous idea for this little 10-minute conversation is transcendence. And what I mean by transcendence, because it sounds very, religious term, and it is just something that cannot be symbolized, cannot be put into language, cannot be commodified, that there's some dimension of reality that has to remain outside the ability to cognize, to even experience, something that an inherent distance within reality. And for us, probably the main form of transcendence in modern life is death. Because you cannot conceptualize death, you cannot experience death, you cannot get rid of death. Some of us try, as in there's people who talk about posthumanism and the idea that we can make death contingent, not necessary. But there's something about all of us are facing something that simultaneously cannot be grasped in experience or language because it's the end of experience and language. So that's one form of transcendence. And I wanted to ask you, I think as a guy who loves transcendence and art and music and life, to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I was standing in the back while you were talking, and I realized that I'm wearing a very transcendent shirt. I don't know, for those of you that live elsewhere, next week is the Queen's Jubilee. I am celebrating...
Please everybody stand up.
Yeah, please. Yeah. And I celebrate the Jubilee of another Queen. God save Nina Simone. And so I realized that, so in 1972, Nina Simone released a live album called Emergency Ward. It was an anti-war album, and it was mostly live recording. And the first side of the album is one song, and it's almost 19 minutes long. And it was recorded live at the Fort Dix Army Training Base in New Jersey in 1971 to a largely African-American group of soldiers who were about to be shipped off to Vietnam. And it's an interesting song because she performs a medley of two things, a familiar pop song and a poem. And the song that she performs is a version of George Harrison's song, My Sweet Lord. But she combined it with a poem by this poet, David Wilson, and the poem was called Today I Am a Killer. Or Today is a Killer. And this live recording begins with a chant from the audience. They want Nina Simone, and she's late to the stage because she was known for being late. And so this recording begins with this chant from the audience. They're clapping and cheering. We want Nina, we want Nina, we want Nina, we want Nina. It just gets louder and louder and louder. And eventually she comes out, and before she sits down at the piano, she says, patience, patience, patience. And Nina Simone was always late, and she was also usually angry. I mean, people talk about, that she just like stare people down when she saw, like ferociously stare people down from the front of the stage, and she just sort of incarnated her own personal rage and the rage of being black in America at a time when, one of her first hits was Mississippi Goddamn, about racial violence and so on and so forth. And she starts to play, and she turns George Harrison's My Sweet Lord, which was a song that George Harrison wrote when he converted and became a Hare Krishna. And My Sweet Lord is basically a Krishna worship song, My Sweet Lord. And it's like a typical worship song. It's just a repetitive chant that builds and builds towards a kind of soft devotional ecstasy. Oh my Lord, I really want to see you, I really want to know you. But she sings it like a gospel song. And it starts off with a tambourine. And she starts playing the piano, and she turns it into a black gospel song. And she's joined by this junior choir of a local gospel church. And she starts to sing this song, and it's a rocked up version of My Sweet Lord for about 4 minutes, and it just builds and builds and builds, and the choir is singing and the audience is clapping and everybody's going nuts. And right at this particular moment, she starts to slow it down. She slows it down, and she begins to turn this gospel song into a hymn. And she starts to leave space between the phrases, and suddenly it's like, I really want to see you, Lord. And the instruments drop out, and it's just the piano and her voice. My sweet Lord. And you can. This is on Apple Tunes. Forget Dua Lipa for a minute and just get this. And not that Dua Lipa's not great, but everybody needs some Nina Simone. And the spaces get longer. And then at one point she sings, and the song starts to turn. And she sings, I really need to see you, Lord, which is a line from Harrison. Then she goes, we really need to see you, Lord, because today is a killer. And she goes into this poem. And the poem is a poem about how days can kill your dreams and your hopes, that you wake up and you have hopes and you have dreams and you have desires and yearnings and longings, but some days are killers and it all sort of goes away. And she recites a little bit of this thing, but it keeps coming back to this refrain, my sweet Lord, my sweet Lord. And eventually she picks up the tempo, and suddenly this song becomes a gospel song again. But you've got to remember, this is a 19-minute opening song at a concert for soldiers going off to war. And in the middle, she starts saying, patience. And anyway, the song goes back up and becomes a gospel song again. And then it all goes away again. And she comes back in, she weaves in between these songs, and it's the giddy heights. It's gospel, it's hymnody, it's silent meditation, and it's a story that she weaves. And it's devotion, and it's anger, and it's hope, and it's rage, and it's love, and it's frustration, and it's spaces. And then it ends. And it's the opening cut of an anti-war album. But it's also transcendence. And I think that's what transcendence is. It's devotion, it's rage, it's anger, it's yearning, it's longing, it's frustration. And the message actually is that patience is the answer to war. But they're not listening. because they're chanting for Nina, for victory, for whatever it is. And so the song just hangs in the air. And to me, that's what a transcendent moment or experience is. It's not a vertical thing. It's an opening up of, because it stretches you. You know, you listen to a song like that and it pulls you. You know, 1 minute you're like, oh, gospel, brilliant. The next minute it's like, oh, wait a minute, we've left. And now we're feeling something different. And you, if you sort of listen to music in particular ways, you get pulled. It's like your rib cage gets opened up and your heart and your mind and ideas start to fire. And just when you think you know something, suddenly you don't know, because you know George Harrison's song, but you don't know this poem. And she invents a melody for it in the middle, and she sings George Harrison's melody, but not quite. And it's Nina Simone, so she does what the fuck she wants in a song and takes everybody on this journey. And then it ends and it leaves you hanging, but you're open in a way that you weren't. And there's this anthropologist in South Africa, David Chidester, and he wrote this really interesting book called Patterns of Transcendence. And it was an examination of the rituals of death and dying around the world. And he starts with sort of tribal cultures, and then he moves on to look at death and dying in different religious worlds, you know, Tibetan Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. And he identifies 4 kinds of transcendence: cultic, ancestral, mythic, and experiential. And experiential transcendence is, I think, what occurs in the arts. It's a kind of usually people sort of separate transcendence from transgression, you know, because it's so often tied to a concept of God and the divine. But experiential transcendence is that space and that place where you get opened up. And the answer doesn't lie in the lyrics of the song or even in the music. It lies in the throwaway comment that she made before she even started. Patience. You need patience. The world needs patience because today is a killer.
Thank you. Okay. The first dangerous idea was play, the second dangerous idea was contradiction, the third dangerous idea was transcendence, and now you have the fourth and most dangerous idea of all. It is Leonie.
Do you know there's a really nasty rumour going around that Barry Taylor is a grumpy old git who talks too much, and I want you to know that is true.
Thrown into a golden cage, renamed the breeder of grace, but all the finest silk of the land couldn't tie up my arms, tie up my hands. As for all the sweet perfume and for all the flesh consumed, oh, nothing could change, yes, that I knew, and by the grace of He went I. Honey spilled over my hands, and now an angry God commands blood on the altar. As the drunken soldier slept, through the palace gardens I crept. On a throne of fence I have slept, but now I am awake. And all day long, the dunes of the dark on my shoulder and 50 pounds sterling I kept in my pocket. I know very soon will be of no use to me, be of no use to me. We're all for the night and a truck to the coast, a rose of organ above us. I'll sway my hips to the beat of the bombs and salute the fallen. Oh, the joy to hear it, so lonesome you wouldn't believe it, as all the world is born again, naked and wailing. Oh, 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 da, 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 da. Thank you very much. Cheers.